Have you ever wondered what leads to a country's devastation and the creation of a long-lasting tragedy? Greetings everyone, I'm Tris. Today we'll journey through the history of the Vietnam War, tracing it back to its origins in World War II, when Vietnam was under French rule, through its independence, civil war, and the involvement of the United States, culminating in its unification. Along the way, we'll uncover the horrific aftermath of this conflict, the legacy it left behind, and how it has shaped Vietnam to this day. It's a tale marked by widespread violence, where many innocent civilians found themselves in harm's way, and the nation experienced massive devastation. If you find this video interesting, it would be great if you could support us by hitting the like button. Now, let's get started. Our journey begins around 80 years ago, amidst the throes of World War II. Vietnam was under the dominion of France at the time. But with the World War at its peak and the German occupation taking hold in France, the French control over Vietnam began to weaken, creating a power vacuum in the region. Japan, who had allied with Germany during the war, capitalized on this opportunity, swiftly taking control of Vietnam with fervor. The Vietnamese initially welcomed this shift of power, hoping for an end to French imperialism. However, this optimism was short-lived as they began to see the reality of their new rulers. The Japanese domination seemed to be a more oppressive continuation of the French colonial rule, which led to a growing resistance within Vietnam. As we move forward to the end of World War, the Japanese control over Vietnam was lifted. This moment was seized by Ho Chi Minh, a revolutionary leader who sought to claim Vietnam's independence. Merely 5 months after Japan's surrender, Ho Chi Minh's organization managed to seize several critical national facilities abandoned by the Japanese military. He then went ahead to declare Vietnam an independent state, transitioning into the post-war era. Establishing a nation amidst the chaos was far from a simple task. As expected, only a short while after Ho Chi Minh declared independence, the French returned to reclaim Vietnam, igniting a full-blown war between the French, desperate to regain control, and the Vietnamese insistent on independence. Interestingly, former Japanese soldiers, left behind after the war, played a significant role during this period. They trained the Vietnamese army, sharing various techniques that transformed the Vietnamese forces into a formidable opponent, often outpacing the French forces' expectations. In the years following these struggles, after a prolonged period of warfare, the French realized they couldn't win and brought back the former Vietnamese emperor, a popular figure among the Vietnamese people, to create an alternate country distinct from the one Ho Chi Minh had founded. This new nation would be recognized as the only independent entity in Vietnam and would be under French influence. On the other hand, the Ho Chi Minh nation was to be erased from the books. The new French-backed state received recognition from major powers, like the United States and Great Britain, while Ho Chi Minh's state received acknowledgement from Communist China and the Soviet Union. The stage was now set for a tense struggle between two Vietnamese nations, each claiming control over the entire country. Amidst this power struggle, the Ho Chi Minh Vietnam, with Soviet Union support, initiated a fierce attack against the French forces. To everyone's surprise, the Ho Chi Minh Vietnam won, leading to a complete withdrawal of France from Vietnam. Moving forward to the outcome of this struggle, Vietnam was subsequently divided into North, Ho Chi Minh's country, and South, the French-established country, ending the war with a promise to hold unifying elections 2 years later. However, history is rarely straightforward. There was a significant player on the global stage who wasn't keen on allowing these reunification elections to take place. That country was the United States. The United States' apprehension about a unified Vietnam stemmed from the ideological leanings of North Vietnam. North Vietnam, established by Ho Chi Minh, was a communist country that proposed an egalitarian distribution of wealth among its people. The United States, which was already in conflict with the communist Soviet Union, feared an expansion of communism should a unified Vietnam lean in that direction. They feared that such a scenario could instigate other Southeast Asian nations to adopt communism, tipping the global balance of power. To prevent such a development, the United States sponsored a new government in South Vietnam, effectively replacing the French-backed rule. Consequently, South Vietnam refused to participate in the proposed unification elections. This refusal, seen as a betrayal by North Vietnam, triggered a civil war in Vietnam. The North Vietnamese aimed to destabilize South Vietnam internally, which set the stage for the infamous Vietnam War, a conflict that would span the next 15 years. The initial strategy of the United States was to offer support to the South Vietnamese army. However, the sheer force and influence of the anti-government factions compelled the United States to reconsider its position. They understood that getting involved in a remote conflict would attract global criticism, but the balance of power was rapidly tipping against their favor, as the United States was seeking a justification for a more significant intervention. An incident occurred that appeared tailor-made for their purpose. A North Vietnamese troop fired torpedoes at an American ship, providing the United States with a casus belli. Yet, it was not as clear-cut as it seemed. The United States ship was within North Vietnamese territory, without permission, complicating the circumstances. The real game-changer was the second incident. Again, the North Vietnamese military allegedly attacked an American warship at the same site. This episode, despite later revelations proving it to be fabricated by the United States, provided the necessary pretext for the United States to join the war officially. With their direct involvement in the conflict, the United States launched a massive bombing campaign against North Vietnamese territories, escalating what was initially a civil war within South Vietnam into a full-blown international conflict between North Vietnam and the United States. One of the reasons why the Vietnam War turned into a quagmire was the guerrilla warfare tactics employed by the North Vietnamese military. They knew that a direct confrontation with the superior United States forces would be futile. They leveraged their geographical advantage, camouflaging within jungles and among civilians, launching surprise attacks. In response, the United States forces employed deadly weapons to expose enemy hidyots. They dropped large amounts of defoliants and herbicides that would not dissipate easily, hoping to eliminate the enemy's camouflage. Moreover, tragically, due to the difficulty of distinguishing between civilians and combatants, operations sometimes resulted in widespread civilian casualties, regardless of age or gender. The real victims of this brutal strategy were the innocent civilians, who had to bear the brunt of these horrific atrocities. Despite North Vietnam's guerrilla tactics, the war seemed to be reaching a stalemate with no clear end in sight. That is, until an incident occurred that shifted the balance once again. It was during the Vietnamese New Year holiday, traditionally a period of ceasefire and celebration. The anti-government groups, however, decided to use this time to launch surprise attacks all across South Vietnam. Although these attacks were quelled eventually, they had a profound impact on the global perspective of the war, particularly in America, where anti-war sentiment started to grow. The media coverage of the incident caused public outrage, resulting in nationwide protests against the war. This internal pressure, coupled with the high cost of the war and mounting United States casualties, compelled the United States government to change its strategy. Buckling under the mounting pressure, the United States decided to cease their air strikes on North Vietnam and gradually withdraw their troops from the region. By 1973, a peace accord was signed between the United States and North Vietnam, marking the end of United States military involvement. However, this did not signal the end of the war. As soon as the United States forces were fully withdrawn, North Vietnam resumed their attacks on South Vietnam. Within 2 years, the South Vietnamese capital, Saigon, fell to the North Vietnamese forces, marking the end of South Vietnam as a separate entity. The unification of North and South Vietnam into the Socialist Republic of Vietnam symbolized the end of the Vietnam War. But the true aftermath of this conflict was grim and far-reaching. The population suffered from the lingering health effects of the defoliants and herbicides used by the United States during the war. Many people were afflicted with cancer, birth defects, and other health issues due to the long-term exposure to these chemicals. The environmental impact of this war was equally devastating, with vast tracts of land rendered uninhabitable. Returning soldiers faced a significant mental health crisis due to post-traumatic stress disorder, a condition triggered by experiencing or witnessing terrifying events. The stigma associated with PTSD further exacerbated these soldiers' plight, leading to severe social and mental health problems, often ignored by society. The Vietnam War left a profound and lasting impact on Vietnam and the world. Its legacy continues to shape Vietnam's society and political landscape to this day, affecting everything from population, health, to socio-political relationships. The war stands as a stark reminder of the disastrous consequences of global powers intervening in local conflicts. The vast scale of devastation and human suffering caused by the Vietnam War continues to reverberate through history, serving as a bitter reminder of the past and a warning for the future. What are your thoughts on the impact of the Vietnam War? Let us know in the comments below. The Vietnam War, like many conflicts, is a stark reminder of the severe consequences of war, while it raises questions about the necessity and morality of such actions. It's important to remember that interpretations of these events can be complex and varied, depending on one's perspective. Though the Vietnam War may leave a particularly bitter taste, we strive to respect all viewpoints in our retelling of these historical events. We hope this video has shed light on this complex historical event. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content. Take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye.